Revered by many, or at least one person in the world, as the most expensive Foot Locker, based on the amount of crap that I have stored in the frame of the thing, the plate-loaded leg press from Prime Fitness also holds the title of one of the most ergonomic leg press machines on the market. As I'm sure you can see, this thing is quite different from your traditional linear 45 or 35 degree leg press, and I'm also sure you can imagine it feels quite a bit different as well. It's almost like, I don't know, I almost feel like one of them should have a completely different name, but even after racking my brain for way longer than I care to admit, I have no better suggestion to offer because, well, in both cases, you absolutely use your legs to press the weight, so I guess leg press just seems appropriate. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but before I get sidetracked, there are 4 main points that I want to address, as these are the questions that I had when I was trying to research the machine before I purchased it. Information was pretty limited, and I ultimately had to just buy it to try it. So foot plate, range of motion, calf raises, and then also just what does it feel like? So if that is something that you're interested in, stick around because I'm going to try my best to tackle those things without using the F word. Now, before I get into this though, I do want to point out I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, so if you're here to maybe watch me do a full-blown leg workout or show off my juicy calves or something like that, this isn't the video for you. That doesn't scare you away, then buckle up, let's hit this head on, okay? So the foot plate, right? Is it sufficiently sized? That was a question that I had because the foot plate measures at about 28 by 18 inches, which it sounds really small if you compare it to a traditional or a linear leg press. But remember, this is not one of those. On the traditional or linear leg press, I find that a giant foot plate may be more conducive in accommodating an array of users of various size, and the inherent limitations of the design and the fixed nature of the foot plate and the carriage on those machines, you know what I mean? Like, we aren't really meant to squish down at a 45-degree angle, and things like our ankles or knees or hips tend to get in the way of that. So maybe by throwing a huge ass foot plate on that style of a leg press, it allows more people to find that kind of sweet spot. That's one of the differences that I think is a factor with the Prime leg press, is that it has this rotating mechanism in conjunction with the way the foot plate kind of comes out and almost on top of you. But then again, you know, it's in a more natural path than what a traditional leg press would allow. So like I said, it allows you to put your feet into position on the plate in relation to your hips and knees so as to kind of target varying aspects of your legs while also alleviating any sort of hindrance from your ankles or hips, because it does articulate as you move through the ROM. So this is what brings me to my next point, range of motion. My question was, can I get a full range of motion? Which is a good question, I think. If you look at some of the other videos that are available out there, it's questionable. People kind of seem to stop at what I would say is about the halfway point. So I'll reassure you, I can get a full range of motion. I find the best way to ensure that is by adjusting the back pad. So there are 4 settings, one being the highest and 4 the lowest. The back pad is gonna go. So I keep mine in hole number 2, as this is a good setting for me not to bottom out. I do find though, if I'm in the lowest position at hole number 4, I'm more likely to hit the bottom, and that's okay. I'm just not tall enough for hole number 4. That's intended for someone else. Maybe someday I'll hit a growth spurt or whatever, but as it stands, I'm not like missing out on gains or anything like that. That adjustment is just there to accommodate different user heights, not necessarily to hit your legs differently or anything like that. So, all right, so my next point, calf raises. Can I do calf raises on this thing like I could a traditional leg press? Now, whether or not you like calf raises, whether or not you do them, or if you believe that calves are 100% genetic, it doesn't really matter. My experience is that yes, you can do them. However, you do have to be kind of thoughtful about the cam setting when you're doing a calf raise with this machine. The cam has 3 different settings, and it basically moves the weight to change the resistance curve. So there's a crossbar and it runs below the foot plate, and I find that with the cam in settings 1 or 2, that bar is going to hit the back of my ankles. And in the 3rd setting, however, I have plenty of space to do calf raises without interference, regardless of whether or not there's actually any benefit to doing the calf raise exercise whatsoever. Now, one downside to this though, is that that 3rd prong or that 3rd setting happens to put the brunt of the resistance at the beginning of the movement. So since you're basically doing this in what would be like full extension on the leg press, you're technically at the top of the range of motion, which means that you're probably going to have to put more weight on the machine just to do the calf raises than what you might do if it had like a fixed resistance curve or something like that. Now, lastly, and probably what I would consider to be the most important, what does it feel like? Now, I will be 100% transparent here. That is kind of a tough one. So, at least for me to describe anyway, but seriously, think about like a traditional leg press, right? Now try to describe that to someone who maybe has never used one. Well, this is not like that. So a traditional leg press uses linear resistance, right? Like the weight moves along a straight line at a 45-degree angle. The Prime leg press uses more of what I might describe as a circular resistance, okay? So if you've ever used a plate-loaded piece of equipment before, then you probably know what I'm trying to describe. It's that feeling where the resistance is inconsistent through the full range of motion. So if you think about a linear resistance being the same level of resistance along the straight path that goes on forever and ever, an example of circular resistance might be something more like it starts off easily and then it gradually gets harder and harder and harder as you move around the circle and against the pull of gravity. And then as you go around it, it's going to kind of taper off, right? Taper off until the resistance just completely drops. And then if you just keep going in circles around that axis, then it would repeat forever. And if you stay with me here, but thinking back to what I was saying earlier about the cam having these three settings, setting 1 kind of puts that resistance in the middle of the movement. Setting 2 puts it at the end, and then setting 3, as I mentioned before, puts the resistance at the beginning of the movement. So this is one of those things that I think is really cool. Like Prime does this with their Smart Strength system. They took something that usually kind of sucks about plate-loaded equipment, and with their Smart Strength system, they managed to use that to not only separate this machine from a traditional leg press, but also give it an advantage that you will not get from a linear leg press. The middle setting, I would say, feels probably the most linear, even though it's technically not. It's the most consistent throughout the ROM, and it just feels the most like you're using your legs to move heavy weight, if that makes sense. Now, setting 3, the beginning range, this feels like all the weight is at the bottom of the lift, so it gets lighter as you reach the top. While Prime equipment is mostly hypertrophy focused, I feel like this setting might be more beneficial for athletes in particular, like football, for example, right? This is something where you might benefit from explosive power out of the hole or whatever. But setting 2, the end range, now this puts the weight at the top of the lift. And it's the only time I can honestly say that I've used a leg press and felt it in and around the teardrop and all that quad insertion points around the knees. So for someone with skinny ass chicken legs like mine, I absolutely love that about this machine because it feels like it's targeting that specific area and makes me feel like maybe someday I might be able to wear shorts without worrying whether or not people are gonna accuse me of skipping leg day more often than they already do. Now, I've just never gotten that from other leg press machines or barbell squats or lunges for that matter. Okay, so that's it. That's all I'm saying because I do want to keep this relatively short and I feel like I've already gone off topic like 3 times. MWPIG5 saves 5% at Prime Fitness. Unfortunately, not on this particular piece, but you should use the code when you shop at Prime or even mention it when you order direct. That way they know you're not a chode. You tried to use the code or whatever. I don't know. Just share it with your friends, or write it on the bathroom stall at your local Piggly Wiggly. You know what? Maybe start a YouTube channel and talk about it on there. That's what I did.